Arsenal have drawn 1-1 with Man City in the big clash at the Emirates in the Premier League. We're going to look at the game, including the lineup selected by Mikel and the major talking points, as well as where it leaves us in the Premier League. We will also look back at the weekend's fixtures and how other teams got on. Finally, we then look ahead to our game in the Carabao Cup as we go away to Port Vale in the third round. Joining us to discuss all of these points is Tom Canton, host of the GoonerTalkTV and Arsenal reporter for Football London and the Mirror. What a lineup we have on episode 17 of Red Lines and Half Spaces. Welcome to episode 17 of Red Lines Half Spaces. It's the day after, the night before. Arsenal drew 1-1 with City in, I don't know how to describe it. It's a difficult game to describe because I can't describe my feelings around it. And I've got two excellent guests who may be able to put it better than I can. But let's start with my co-host, Joe. Joe, how are you feeling this morning?
I am ready to maybe have a rant, Yem. I'm feeling like I need to get it out of my system. Since I've come home from the stadium last night, my frustration has been just palpable. I thought going for a run this morning would help. All I did for that entire run was think about how annoyed I was about the game yesterday. So this is going to be a very welcome discussion on what was ultimately, I think, a very frustrating afternoon.
And then to help us even further with the dissection of this game, we have the one and only Mr. Tom Canton, the chief football writer for the Football London. I'm trying to get all your credentials because you've got so many, because you're so good at what you do, my friend. Football London, now the Mirror Football as well, and also the host, if you don't know, of the Gooner Talk TV. He's just done his show at 8 o'clock. As we record this, about 9:30ish in the morning, he's just come off his show, which if you don't catch it in the morning, why are you not? If you're up at that time, or if even you're not, you should be catching it. My friend Tom, welcome. How are you doing, my friend? This morning,
I'm good, man. I wish I was the chief football writer of the Mirror. That's John Cross. So,
that's John Cross. Sorry, no, but you are the football. You are right. You know, again, that do you know what? Eventually, will happen. Sorry, John, if you're listening, I apologise. But you just keep going from strength to strength, my friend. I mean,
Thanks,
it is
man.
crazy what how far you're. I've been lucky enough to see you just go into the stratosphere almost, and it's only going to go further. So
thanks, mate.
Congratulations, because it's a recent byline as well with the Mirror, isn't it?
Yeah, the company's gone through some big changes recently, and very sadly that meant losing a lot of people, and it's something that regularly has happened while I've been at the company, and you never want to see people go, and it's been kind of a big restructure that's in kind of Football London, which I'm sure many people are aware of from work done by the likes of James Bench, Charles Watts, Akai Kainak, of course, as well. And now it's part of a bigger company called Reach, who also own the Mirror and the Express, of course, as well. And so now we're kind of the regional titles like FL and the MEN and Liverpool Echo are being brought closer in with the national titles. So yeah, you're going to see some stuff in print. It's weird going into the newsagents and seeing your name in print. It's very odd, but it's a nice feeling.
Oh, that must have been a special feeling when you opened up the newspaper and went, "That's me. I wrote this." And
it was more when my father-in-law texted me a picture of it that he picked it up. I think that hit more. Yeah, definitely.
That's really nice. That's a nice family moment. That's really definitely nice. So no, again, we're very grateful for you to take the time to come on. Let's dive into it because obviously you've also had your little vent already on your show this morning. But I think that talking is therapeutic. We drew 1-1 in a game which on the face of it, and let's talk about the pre-game, Tom. I went into this game thinking we had probably our best chance of having a very positive result for the first time in a number of years, that a lot of media people, a lot of sports journalists were looking at us and saying we should be the favourites for this game, which is a great testament to the work we've done over the summer and the building of the team Arteta's done. How did you feel going into this game? Were you like me, just feeling, look, we should have a positive game here. We should be the ones coming out of this with a positive result?
Yeah, without a doubt. There was real confidence about going into this game. And maybe it comes from a bit of naivety in reflection. Maybe there is a little naivety about it, because if you look back at kind of games between the two teams that compete for the title, which for the most part have been either ourselves, Liverpool, and Manchester City over the last few years, those games tend to always be really tight. And so maybe there is an element of us just being overly confident about this. But I think we have, in many ways, reason to have confidence going into this game, because not only had Man City played just 3 days prior in their Thursday night Champions League game, but they also were suffering with problems. We got some players back. Even we've got this depth now, with the signings that we've made. We, in my opinion, went to Anfield, and there were similar issues in that game that I'm sure we'll come on to as well, especially with the selection. But we're very competitive in that game and created problems for Liverpool. Man City have lost 2 games already this season as well. I think all of those factors have combined to give us kind of this confidence that we thought going into this game, we're going to dominate the game, which we did, but we're going to be more efficient in how we attacked and how we created chances and how we utilised the possession that we got. And in the end, I think everyone else felt relieved with the equaliser, of course, but still felt shortchanged in what our expectations were probably as we woke up on Sunday morning.
Yeah, and Joe, those expectations, I don't think are born out of arrogance or anything like that, as Thomas said. It's the work Arteta has done and the depth of the squad, the quality now, which is something that we haven't had for a while, that we should be expected to compete in these games, that we should be, in the past, we've had fear factor, haven't we? We've always been scared of we're playing City. This is it. We're not going to be doing that. The attitude is completely different this year, isn't it?
Well, yeah, we discussed it in the preview show, mate. Like, so many times we've gone up against a City side and we've looked at their starting 11 and their bench and thought, oh my God, we need a miracle to get out of here with a point. If we win this game, something amazing is going to happen. But I think for the first time that I can remember, in a long time, maybe since sort of City got all this money in the first place, I think we went into this game with a better starting 11 and a better bench than they did. And to see us almost kind of surrender, if you like, with that starting lineup, which I felt it was, no disrespect to sort of a Trossard and Marino, but for me, they're squad players who should be treated as squad players. I mean, they should come into sort of the lesser games or should be coming off the bench to affect games. They're not players I'd want to see start in the biggest games. So yeah, for me, I'm sure we'll go into it. It just felt very pragmatic. I've used the word stodgy before, and it just had that kind of feel that we'd almost showing City the respect from years gone by. We weren't respecting City of sort of 2022 when they was winning trebles and all that sort of stuff. This is a very new City we're seeing. Like Tom said, they're in transition. They've got injury problems. They played a few nights ago. Everything was kind of, for a change, things were in our favour, I feel, going into a big game. I know we had a few injury problems as well, but yeah, it's so disappointing because I feel like arguably they was there to be got at straight away, start quick, go at them with pace, have that energy about us. And I don't think our team reflected that kind of, or our starting lineup anyway, I don't think reflected that energy that I wanted to see.
So let's talk about the lineup now. You've transitioned us beautifully into that. David Raya in goal, no arguments there. The defence was William Saliba, Gabriel, Yuri Timber, Ricardo Calafiori. William Saliba obviously came back after injury. The midfield, Mika Marino, Martin Zubimendi, Declan Rice. Up front, Victor Gyökeres, Noni Madueke, and then Leandro Trossard coming in, who was a bit of a surprise. Tom, I think, I watched your show this morning, and I think the way you summed up was a bit of a shocker, wasn't it? When Trossard and Marino, I think I could have predicted coming because I think it's happened in the last couple of games. But Trossard was definitely a surprise, wasn't it? How did you view the lineup?
I remember going up to Anfield with a similar level of, excitement and confidence and optimism. And when the lineup came out at Anfield, that optimism evaporated almost instantaneously. And I was just like, why has he done this? This is kind of the questions swirling around in my mind. And it was kind of like, it wasn't as much as it was for Anfield because I'd seen it before. So I was almost in many ways expecting it. And yet, even though I was expecting that midfield three in particular, I was still obviously very disappointed to see it. The Trossard selection was the odd one. Like, I remember asking Arteta before the game, I said, Trossard, Martinelli had such a good game in midweek with their impact. And you mentioned before about utilising kind of the emotional form of Marino's goals against Spain in the selection against Nottingham Forest that he had over Declan Rice. And I said, therefore, does that come into your thinking? Now, if it's my fault that provoked him to choose Trossard, I do apologise.
We now know who's the culprit. That's it.
It's all me. Yeah. No, I'm not naive enough to think that I have any bearing on what Arteta does. But I think I was kind of expecting it to be Martinelli from the start and utilising his kind of boost in confidence. And the fact that he came off the bench later in the game and scored, of course, kind of shows you what that coiled spring, if you like, perhaps could have been from the start. But I just thought he's a bit scared. He's still a bit scared in these particular battles, in these particular clashes. I for one don't think that the games against Arsenal, and it sounds mad, but I think that the history backs this up. I don't think the games against Liverpool and Man City are the games that define whether you win the league or not. Liverpool last season didn't beat Arsenal in either of the two games that they played against us, and Man City the season before didn't beat Arsenal in either of the two games that they faced against us either. They aren't the defining games. For me, it's about the games that we played home to West Ham, away to Fulham. These are the games that, for me, will define whether Arsenal win the league. And we've got a very good run of those coming up very shortly. And also, I think games like the Newcastle game as well away from home, which have been, and Man United away this season, which we've already turned around into a victory from the draw we had last season. So those are the types of games for me I think are more definitive. But there's no doubt that these games can be huge boosts for you and huge kind of springboards for your team. And I think if you go into them as well to make a statement, you can also set the record for the games that you've got coming up and give your players again, that springboard or whatever analogy you want to use to give them that encouragement, that morale boost going into those games. And I just think, if anything, he surrendered much of the impetus that we could have had by going for an Eze instead of a Marino. And I think there's changes at half time that he made just exacerbated that by basically saying, I got the first half wrong. The Madueke changes because of injury, but Eze for Marino is an admission because it's not like you're 2 or 3 down at halftime. You're 1 down. You need a goal whether you're 0-0 or 1-0 down. The state doesn't change. You still need to go and get a goal. And so the fact that he made that change at halftime, I think, and then sadly in the post-match presser didn't necessarily take accountability for it, I thought was a bit disappointing.
So Joe, to that point, what Tom made, he started with that same midfield, which you called, very rightly, stodgy. Why has he done this? Because I understand in certain games there is a tactical viability to having Marino, Rice, Zubimendi. But as Tom said, there was an impetus for Arsenal in this game to push the attack a little bit. It wasn't exactly as if we were defensively lacking. We're very solid defensively. That's not the issue at the moment. But why would he go with that kind of very defensively minded, very immobile, very lack of creativity, if you call it that? Because I like Mikel Merino. I think Mikel Merino is a very good player in a certain system and a certain way. But he's not a connector. And we lacked that, I thought, in the game yesterday. We lacked the connection between the front line and the midfield. It was all too much trying to go out through the wings. What did you make of that line? Why do you think he's gone this way? Is it the history of what he's seen before? Is it that he saw something tactically? Because as we've all talked about, this game, we had I'm not saying it is a massive benefit, but there were certain factors that benefited us, didn't they? So why would he go this route, Joe, in your opinion?
I think Tom's used a very interesting word with the word fear. It's a great way of putting it. Is Arteta still stung by sort of seeing this Arsenal side ship 5? He might not have been the manager at the time, but watching us regularly ship 5 goals against a City and a Liverpool and a Chelsea during that kind of period we went through. I'm not sure, but he definitely seems to have a let's not lose the game first mentality, which, okay, if you go into Anfield we might not like it, but you can kind of understand the necessity to go and be solid in the early stages. You can make an argument, see it there. But for home games, given what City have produced so far this season, knowing the problems that they had, knowing the schedule they've had this week, I don't think there was any need for us to have an element of fear or to go and try and control a game from sort of the kickoff and worry about what they had. Don't get me wrong, Haaland is arguably the best centre forward in the world, definitely the best goal scorer in the world. But I've seen Gabriel and Saliba manage Haaland. So there's a respect for Haaland, but I don't think there's a fear of Haaland in this side. Phil Foden, good player. Do I fear him? No. Doku, again, very quick. Is there reason to fear him? No. There's no one in that City side at the moment. It's not like when De Bruyne was playing with Haaland, you was like, okay, that's a worry. Because that was a combination that used to tear teams to shreds on a regular basis. But there was nothing in that City side for us to put out a side where we had to be conservative, I don't think. I just think it was a real opportunity missed, because I think if we go with a Wanyeri in the middle and Eze in the middle, and rightly, I think, start Martinelli on the left, given what he's done for us in the week coming off the bench and the sort of the confidence he'd have, I think City straight away are on the back foot. And sort of to Tom's point, the substitutions at half-time, it's almost Arteta sort of conceding that we just wasted 45 minutes of not really going for the game. And I mean, they score their goal within 10 minutes, I think, and your game plan within 10 minutes is completely out the window. And because I assume what he's gone for is keep it tight for 45, and then second half, bring on all these sort of attacking players, and then we'll overpower City and overrun them with the fresh legs. But I think we could have overrun them and overpowered them with fresh legs from kickoff. So why we went with that lineup, I don't know. Like we said, it's an Arteta thing of defend first, don't concede, make sure we're tight, and then we build on that. And I think that's something that's going to have to change if he wants to win the sort of the big trophies.
And Tom, to that point, the first 45 minutes was a waste. Look, they scored, as Joe put it, they scored within 10 minutes. It was a very good run from Tijani Reinders powering through. I think Gabriel was a bit culpable being up the field so much. I think he was very emotional. He looked really riled up at the start of the game. I know he's always up for the Haaland contest, and he gets up for the big occasions, but he looked very emotional during that first half, and then started to ease back a little bit. But their goal came through, a very good break from Tijani Reinders and a very slip ball. I think everyone knew as soon as he slipped that ball to Haaland in that right channel, you were like, yeah, well, I'm not even bothering. That's going to go bottom left, and it was a goal. But it was disappointing, wasn't it, the way that the goal was conceded? It was very un-Arsenal-like, especially with the defence that we have more recently with Gabriel Saliba.
Yeah, it was. I think you're right to use the word emotional. I think it wasn't just Gabriel. I think the team in general started the game quite emotionally, and there was a real impetus about us to attack straight away, which was what we wanted to see. But it was almost like the goal killed us, and really kind of, in some ways, instilled that nervousness about how we approached then the rest of the game, because there were obviously other moments that City had to counter. I think there was a Mika Marino mistake in the first half. Haaland had that chance in the second half as well that Raya saved well. So there were these points in the game, I think, that came from that City realised that that's how they can get goals in this fixture. And that's the first goal we've conceded from open play, and I don't think there's any surprise that it comes from our defence being absent, really, for an emotional kind of error, and Gabriel being caught high. I don't have any issues of how Saliba dealt with it. I think Saliba was caught between two players. He had to cover off the run of Reinders. He couldn't just abandon the player with the ball, and there was no one to his left really to cover, so he was kind of caught to skew slightly left, and the pass was perfectly timed, and the finish was perfect as well. So, it was all executed in a way that you'd expect Manchester City to do so. I think it was just, I remember seeing Gabriel, I think, kind of in the first 5 minutes whipping the crowd up like with his arms, and you don't really see that from him. And you do see it in like moments towards the end of games where maybe we're holding on to a result and, he makes a good tackle or wins a goal kick or something, but not in the first 5 minutes. You don't really see that from him. So he knows the rivalry. He knows the narrative between him and Haaland. He's desperate to get this win. He's desperate to get a title, of course, as well for Arsenal. He knows that these games are obviously important for that. But Yeah, it's never ever going to be something I think you can coach out of somebody like Gabriel. Those moments are going to happen to him, and you make that trade off with the brilliant defender, world class level defender that he is. And unfortunately, that it's a moment that's happened in a really key moment that we haven't been able to go forward and still get the win from. Because if we go on to win that game, you know, we're not really talking about Gabriel in the way that we're talking about it, or that moment. And to be honest, even though we haven't won the game, I don't expect that to be a problem that manifests itself more regularly in games coming up either. I just don't think so. It will be a moment which he looks at, reflects on, and will move forward from as well. But when you've also got a player like Calafiori alongside you, who roams so much and does so well in that type of style, that when you get turned over, and Zubimendi, of course, is the deepest midfielder, is the guy involved in that kind of little melee in the middle where the ball is turned over. Yeah, you're always going to be very vulnerable. And I think if and annoyingly, it kind of vindicates Arteta in some ways for how he set the game up, because he was worried about those moments happening. But you could argue maybe if he was a little bit more proactive, we wouldn't have seen situations like that emerge. So you're kind of caught between two schools of thought there. And I think it's just a moment. It's just a moment that can happen in any game, and it happened to happen against a team that are incredibly efficient with their, chance taking.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. Look, these are just things that happen. Gabriel, more often than not, is very calm now. He's much calmer than he's been in the last couple of years, certainly when he started out. But these things happen. It's a massive game. There's a lot of build-up towards it, and rightly there is. And, you could, as you said, he was rightly getting very emotional. But obviously, that caught him out in this instance. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it helps him massively. I think the concern is on 14 minutes, most Arsenal fans were very much, we can get back into this. The noise was still, we were going, come on, we can get back into this. But what followed was very stodgy again. And I think there's certain components, and we talked about Mika Marino, so I'm not going to bang that drum. But I certainly think as well, our problems up front with Trossard not really being that effective. I think he does better off the bench for me personally. I think we do have to have a chat about Victor Gyökeres, and I think you mentioned it as well, Tom, on your show this morning. Joe, the Victor Gyökeres problem. Obviously, when we bought him, we knew what we were getting. It was either Benjamin Sesko or Victor Gyökeres, two very different strikers. They're not the top echelon. They're not the Isaks or the Kylian Mbappés, etc. But we bought them to be changes within our squad. And if we were being very honest with ourselves, Victor Gyökeres would not have started this game. I don't think. I think this is a Kai Havertz game because it's designed for a little bit more. I'm not saying Victor Gyökeres is not an intelligent player, but I think it's that kind of player who knows how to expose space better, who's designed to pull the defense out a little bit better. But Victor Gyökeres is what we have at the moment because obviously Kai Havertz is injured. But he got no shots on goal at all during that game. And he looked isolated again. Where does the fault lie with Victor Gyökeres? Is it the player or is it what's behind him supplying the service? How do you view it, Joe?
I think you can argue both points, to be honest. I think Gyökeres probably could do more. I'd be interested to get your thoughts on this, Tom. But to me, he still looks heavy. To me, he looks too muscular, I think, when he's sort of moving around. Like, if you look at him compared to Haaland, Haaland's known for being a physical player. But if you look at Haaland, he's not muscular. He's very sort of lean muscle, whereas Gyökeres seems to almost look too heavy to me moving around. So I don't know whether that contributes. But again, I mean, with the midfield behind him, a Marino, Zubimendi, Rice midfield, he's not going to get many options. He's not going to be blessed with opportunities, I don't think, because that midfield isn't going to create you many chances. I think in the wide areas, I think we needed pace yesterday, to be honest, against the fullbacks that City had. Kusanov, we know he's had a few issues. And obviously on the other side, O'Reilly, good players, but I mean, they're not known for their pace. I feel like Martinelli could have really got a Kusanov. I think Trossard was dealt with fairly easily, if I'm being honest, that first half. Didn't really beat his man once that I can remember. Madueke on the other side, I think, did well. But again, it's a lot of promise with Madueke. He beats his man really well, but we still haven't got a goal contribution from him. Be that his fault or someone in the middle, you could argue that point. But at some point, he needs to get a goal, get an assist. And I think in terms of Gyökeres, when you've got two wingers either side of you who aren't creating the best chances for you, you've got a midfield behind you that isn't sort of playing the balls that you would like ideally as a centre forward. We know his limitations in kind of the build-up play and that kind of thing. So you've got to look for his runs that he makes in between defenders, which I still don't think we're spotting, because he made a few runs again in the first half, but again, just wasn't found at all, not once. Yeah, just really frustrating, mate. And I think you can point to a whole plethora of things. I think you can look at the team itself, the lineups that we're playing, him as an individual, and it's almost like a perfect storm of why he's not getting chances. And we said after the Champions League game, as long as he's getting chances, then as a centre forward, that's the main thing, because eventually goals come. But yesterday, again, not really getting a chance. That's where there is a problem, and that's where I would have concerns when your centre forward isn't getting chances.
Tom, it's an interesting point. I mean, you put it, you discussed this point on your show this morning as well. Is it the case that we're not supplying enough to him, or is it that Victor Gyökeres, to Joe's point, needs to look at his physical nature? Because he does look at, I think he looks a little weighty as well in terms of, it doesn't look at peak fitness or physique. You may know something else about that with your links. But also as well, we're not finding the balls to him. We're not getting this. There's pretty much no service to him. It seems like we're still playing in front of the defense rather than beyond them. Where do you think the Victor Gyökeres, I'm not going to call it an experiment because it's not an experiment. It's what we have. It's the card we're dealt with effectively. Where are we with this? And how do we move forward? Because he's got to be more in the game. This can't go on for too long, because then we're carrying dead weight almost, aren't we?
I think it's 80-20 in terms of 80% being an Arsenal problem, 20% being a him problem. I think the 20%, I don't know about like the frame stuff. Like, he's always been like that. So, watching him at Sporting, he always had that kind of frame to him. That's how he's always moved about the pitch. He had more space in Portugal. So, that maybe allowed him to look a little bit kind of more mobile, I guess. I think there are moments where Noni kind of pulls the ball back into an area, and I'm like, he needs to be there, and he needs to be in those positions more. But this is first. I think the schedule that we've had at the start of this season has predicated him having a very tough introduction to English football at the highest level. And had Arsenal had a run of games like we're going to have soon, with the games that we've got, coming up after Newcastle, we've got Olympiacos at home, West Ham at home, Fulham away, Atleti at home, Palace at home, Burnley away, Slavia away, Sunderland away, until the 23rd of November when we play Spurs. That's a lot of opportunities there, to really kind of for Arsenal to stamp their mark, and players that are new to integrate, whereas having Old Trafford away, a notorious place for Arsenal to struggle at, Anfield away, City at home, even Forest under a new manager, which is unpredictable. You don't know what you're going to get, and they're a decent side who got European qualification last season, and a newly promoted team as well, who obviously always, you never really know what you're going to get from those teams. I think in the two games that he has scored in, being against Leeds and Forest, they're the games I think he was bought for. I don't think he was bought to be the difference in these games. We were already really strong with Havertz as our centre forward in this. We hadn't lost a game against the Big Six team since April 2023, prior to that Anfield defeat. And that came by having either Havertz or Mikel Merino as our centre forwards, alongside, I think, Jesus, who is also more of a false nine than a traditional nine in those positions. And I agree with you. I think Havertz, if fit, would have started this game. In the summer when we signed Gyökeres, there wasn't an Erling Haaland for Arsenal to sign. There wasn't a Declan Rice of centre forwards for Arsenal to sign during this window. There were a few options. There was Gyökeres, Šeško, Ekitike, And then if you had the money, which we didn't, we did have the money, but we wanted to buy a lot of different talent. Obviously, Alexander Isak was potentially there right at the end of the window. And I think Arteta would have loved to have signed Alexander Isak because I think he was the Haaland level kind of player that could have come in. But we needed to add so much to so many areas that they just didn't fit. And they obviously got the message from Newcastle so early on when they wanted to do their business that it just wasn't a deal that was going to happen, and it didn't happen until late after his exile and behaviour. So I think that from an Arsenal perspective, Gyökeres was signed to be additive to what we already have in Kai. He wasn't coming in to replace necessarily Kai in every single game that we play. And I think that Kai has real weight and value in this team under Arteta. And I think, last season prior to his injury, he was on record to score 20 plus goals last season. That was what he was tracking towards. And that would have been a great return for Havertz as our centre forward. We just don't really play a style and system that suits a traditional spearhead type on the end of every chance number 9. Now, we're going to need to start playing more towards that style because we have now that type of centre forward that we've spent a fair chunk of money on. I don't agree with the comparisons to Man City when they changed their whole philosophy when Haaland arrived, because Haaland is, for me, probably the best centre forward on the planet and will be going forwards for the next 5 to 10 for however long. He's still early to mid 20s, Haaland. So he could easily go for the next 8 to 10 years still, potentially. That's why he signed such a long contract with Manchester City. You change your whole philosophy for a player like that when they come in. With all due respect to Gyökeres, he isn't that level. Like he's not that level of centre forward. He's not proven to be that level in the top leagues like Haaland was with Dortmund and in the Champions League and in the Bundesliga, and then with Manchester City as well when he proved he could come in and do it. He's a very different type of player. He's better at link-up. He's better with his technical ability. He's got a better first touch. He's got better pace and speed and drive. He's got a better composure in those runs as well and a better kind of directness about how he plays because he is a world-class centre-forward. And for Gyökeres is a finisher. Gyökeres is your player that you get on the end of your chances and you would back him to score. We just haven't got him into any of those moments. To have 0 shots at Old Trafford, Anfield and in this game, that's not a him problem. He's the striker. If your striker's not shooting, that's a system issue. That's not the striker issue because you're not getting the ball to him in those right positions. So Arteta needs to find a way with Havertz out for this amount of time in getting him. And the fact that he has started in 2 of those 3 games, Marino, instead of a number 10, even though Odegaard's not been fit for either of those 2 games to start, and he's had Eze or he's had Guarneri, the fact that he's not found, and I love the word that you used, which was connector, the fact he's not used that type of player, that's an Arteta Arsenal problem, not a Gyökeres problem.
Yeah, well, and I think he has to solve it pretty quickly because even though Havertz is due back fairly imminently, he's going to be needed. You can't just say, well, you'll come in on these games, as you said, Tom, in the lesser games, not against the top 6, but you're going to need to be able to find him to get that value out of him because otherwise then it's just carrying dead weight. I just want to go through a couple of the match stats. Obviously, it was a 1-1. We had 67% possession, 33% possession. We had 12 shots on goal. They had 5 shots, 3 shots on target each, which is, again, I come back to this point. A couple of years ago, we would have been full on defensive, a lack of shots on goal. We would have been taking, the odd couple of shots. It is a very different side, Joe, isn't it? That we are much better now, and we should have been much better in this game. But the goal came eventually in about into just about stoppage time.
93 was it?
93, a lovely ball from Eze, who had come on at half-time and done very well, I think. Lovely ball from Eze into Martinelli. A bit of a melee between him and the defence, but very well taken to get beyond the defender and then just slot it away beyond Donnarumma, who I have to say, God, Donnarumma is so annoying. We're back to last year. I'm getting PTSD from him again. He had a shot from Eze, which he saved, and he's just so annoyed that City got him again. But Joe, it was a really good goal, wasn't it, from Martinelli? And as Tom put it, that kind of coiled spring almost that just wants to let loose, and he did it again by being the match winner.
Amazing what happens when you put some attacking players on the pitch, isn't it? How you can start creating chances. Who would have thought it?
How many attacking players did we have on the pitch at that point?
Well, more than enough. Yeah, really, really good goal. And the frustrating thing is, I feel like that could have happened from the first minute rather than waiting for it to happen in the 93rd if we'd gone with the right lineup. But yeah, we've done that to death. So let's just focus on the goal. Really good goal, brilliant from Eze. That's what you paid for, to spot that pass and to to do it from a central position as well, because it was sort of just floated so beautifully over the top. There's not much margin for error there between the back line of City and the goalkeeper. So to put it where he did, outstanding. The run from Martinelli timed perfectly. And it kind of feeds into the point we've discussed before, Yem, about Martinelli playing in those kind of central areas and what he offers us. If he is sort of out of form on the left-hand side, he can offer us something through the middle. And I would like to see him given sort of more opportunities there. But hats off to him, because what a first touch and what a finish it was. There was no margin for error with this goal. I mean, he could have quite easily, given the sort of the form he has been in, sort of just maybe had a heavy touch and it sort of straight away the chance is gone. Because if he takes that even slightly wider than sort of he wants to, the chance is gone immediately. So for him to take that first touch that he did was so sort of cushioned perfectly into his path, and then to lift it over Donnarumma, considering the sort of the speed he's travelling at, the pressure that he's coming under, he's going away from goal. He's not sort of running towards the goal, and sort of that outside of the foot sort of just lift it over him. Absolutely brilliant. And I think that shows that was instinct. That wasn't Martinelli thinking about what he was doing. He just knew, okay, I've seen the keeper's position. Just got to get over him. And it's all done on instinct. He didn't have time to think about what he was doing because he was being chased down and he was going away from goal. So it just shows you, when you're sort of struggling confidence-wise, just get back to doing sort of instinctive things, and it shows the quality of the player. And I feel you saw that with that goal from Martinelli.
Can I ask a question to both of you? Because I had the same thing. You know, when the ball looped, when he took his shot, were you just holding your breath for a moment just to wait and see if it actually dropped in? Because I was just going, is it going to drop? Is it going to drop? Because I was like, oh, if it goes past the post, that's...
Well, fortunately for you, Yem, your seat is directly behind where that ball was dropping. So I imagine you would have had a fairly good view of where
I
it was bouncing.
Literally going...
From where I
time
was sitting,
stopped for a moment.
We was literally holding our breath. From where I sit, sort of over on the East Bank, it could have been heading for the corner flag, or it could have been heading for the corner of the goal. We didn't know. It was literally just hold your breath and wait for the net to bulge, and thank God it did eventually.
I had like the complete... Because obviously at the end of games, that's when I'm at my busiest, when I'm writing in the press box. Like, I didn't see it until Martinelli was kicking the ball. Like, I didn't see the pass from Eze. I didn't see the run from Martinelli. All I saw was this ball looping over Donnarumma, and I was like, oh, we scored! Like, it was, because I'm typing out like the end of this, like, Arsenal drop,
you think that's
Arsenal
that's the
lose
game
to
over?
Man City. You know, I'm typing out because the piece has to go live on the full-time whistle. So like, I'm always busiest at the full-time moment. So like, I couldn't. I was like, I was stunned, like utterly stunned, and then also a case of, you're always in that as a fan, you're buzzing. As a journalist, it's the worst case scenario in the world
because you have to rewrite the whole thing. You have to just change your
Thankfully,
byline.
I kind of wrote it in the sense of like dropped points rather than defeat, because that was obviously still fit with the draw. So, you know, you just have to kind of work your little bits of magic. It's awful when obviously it goes from kind of a draw to a win or whatever, because it changes the context completely. But yeah, I get you.
Yeah, so unfortunately Joe's had to drop off. He's got some family issues, but Tom has very graciously said that he's going to stick with us. I appreciate it, Tom. But Tom, in terms of the game, so we've drawn 1-1. It's one of those big six contests against our supposed rivals. We don't know. It's very early in the season. But to that point, where are Arsenal in terms of, is this a setback for the title? It's very early, I feel, but there's a lot of media saying, oh, are they in for the title? It looks a little bit, it doesn't look really like they're tracking towards it. And, you know, there's the stats that track towards 75 points. Where do you stand with this? It's not the greatest result for us, but we haven't lost.
Yeah, I mean, we win at Newcastle and we're +2 from the previous season from the same 6 games. So I think that's context. I talked about it on my show. I said that, and I said it I think already on here, I don't think Arsenal winning the title is defined by the games against Liverpool and City, because as I mentioned, you know, the last 2 title winners have not beaten the team that finished second in the table in the last 2 campaigns. I don't know what the record is beyond that, but certainly in the last 2 seasons. And For me, it will come down to the rest of games, the 17 other teams that we have to face. That is what will define whether Arsenal win the league or not this season. I just kind of hope that Arteta learns from obviously these moments and these games in particular, and that we start to see more of what we saw in the game against Leeds, in the game against Forest, and to a lesser extent United as well, because the United game actually had a lot of good moments in it that people kind of glossed over. There were 12 really good turnovers of play that we just didn't generate a big chance from that we should have done, and there were much more positives from that I think people took from it, because we wanted to blow them away and it's United, and there's always that element to it. But I think what sometimes we're guilty of, fans, is being too introverted about Arsenal, is that there's 22 players on that pitch, not 11. City defended exceptionally yesterday, were really, really good defensively. It was a style of footballer from Pep that we just haven't seen in 10 years. And this Arsenal team have provoked that from Pep Guardiola because of what we are now. We are at Liverpool as well. Liverpool in the first half against us at Anfield were second best. Arsenal were the better team. They were creating things, and it was obviously our lack of pragmatism in the second half and the changes we didn't make. Go on, sorry, Ian.
To that point, Tom, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Pep went very unusual with a 5-5-0, pulling Haaland off. How did that
lost him the game? Well, not lost him the game. That cost him the win. Yeah.
I think so. And someone put it really well. Arteta lost the first half because he played Mikel Merino and it was too conservative. Pep lost the second half because he dropped Haaland and went conservative. This is a very... look, Mikel, we all know, has got this thing in him. But for Pep, I don't know, as a journalist, for me personally as a fan, I was going, that's a really odd one. I've never seen him do this. How did you find as a journalist who's covered these games with Pep and seen it all and seen how he does it?
Yeah, I was delighted when Haaland left the field. I think anyone would be. But I was delighted because it signified a moment in the game where City weren't going to be as threatening on the counter, and Arsenal could just... And Doku, I think, came off also. And we could just continue to kind of just bang at the door until it came down. And that's what we did. But it didn't come down through, passes, intricate play outside the box. It came from a long ball over the top, and Martinelli with a fantastic, low XG finish in the end. I think that it's a message, obviously, about what conservatism can bring you. Yes, it can bring you some really, really important results. Like you think about the game last time, Arsenal went down to 10 men for 54 minutes of the game, and we very nearly came out of there with a 2-1 victory. And we didn't make kind of changes to necessarily cost us the point. We were just very unlucky with a ball that ricocheted from a corner, eventually went to John Stones and was tapped in. And so we could have got, from that pragmatic approach, a really, really strong result in Manchester, and sadly we didn't. At Liverpool, again, even though we selected a conservative lineup, we were the better team in the first half and we took the game there. And the same can be said about this City game. Even though we picked a more conservative team, we were the team in the ascension, we were the team more threatening, we were the team that were dominant in control, and we were the team ultimately, if you were to pick a side based on just how the game was kind of playing out, Arsenal looked, of those teams, the more likely to win those games. And so that's how Arteta approaches it. He's a probability man. He's very much a guy that thinks if you've got more of the ball, if you create more of the chances, if you have more of the territory in the opposition half, you are the team that is going to be more likely to win each game you play. And he works on those probabilities. And I get that. I just think that he needs to have a different edge, element, side to him that when we're going into this season, which is meant to be the season, really, for Arsenal. And it's not just about what we think. Arsenal, for a long time, I've been saying this since 2022, 2025 has been targeted for a long time as being the year. And we thought that 5-year investment from the point Arteta was appointed under different people, but still under the same ownership, they were looking at 2025 as being a 5-year point, and if we won anything along the way, it would have been Sin more so, I think, as a bonus. But the fact that we have reached this point where we've established ourselves as title challengers, established ourselves as one of the teams expected to go far in the Champions League as well, and reach latter stages of competitions, this is the year that they targeted as being the time where Arsenal would, and Arteta's used this word already, but they would explode. But we don't look like we've exploded yet. It's still like the match is still lit. And I don't know what the string's called. You might know you know what I'm talking about. We're kind of like the classic Wallace and Gromit as the rocket's about to take off. As it's
and it hasn't done that yet.
It hasn't done that yet. It's still the charge is still burning, and until Arteta kind of flicks the switch and changes something and becomes a bit braver, we're still just going to be, burning away. It's that point that we need to then explode that takes Arsenal into the next level, and we haven't flipped that switch yet.
So here's the $1 million question then, Tom. We are going to St James's Park away.
Yeah.
Traditionally a very tough venue for us.
Yeah.
So a lot of the media, and you've seen it as well, with Sky Sports saying that he needs to just let the handbrake off a little bit.
Yeah.
I get the feeling, me personally, I don't think he will at St James's Park. I get the feeling he will not do it.
Still the same midfield three.
I think he'll go the same midfield three, unless Ødegaard. If Ødegaard is back fully fit,
back.
Because Ødegaard gives you that pressing. Eze is not the presser. What he is a moments player who does really well in creating space and as a connector. We saw it yesterday. He creates chances, he creates moments, and that's what you want. But Ødegaard is your presser, your metronome, who will keep things going, who will keep getting you into positions. So let's play the devil's advocate. Ødegaard is not fit, or not 100% fit. How do you think he would start? And again, for you personally, and what you actually think he will do.
I think he. Honestly, Liam, I don't know. I don't know. I'm really torn. I'm really torn between.
He won't learn. I don't think he'll. I don't think he can change it. I thought this game, to be honest, Tom, was the game where you said he's going to go for it. We're at home, impetus. Bring on it. Put Eze or Wanyeri and get the crowd going and from the get go. And he went conservative. St James's, which is
sucks the energy out of the crowd.
Yeah, it really did. It really did. Before the match, it really did.
I almost felt like whenever Mourinho would lose the ball or would misplace a pass, there was a heightening of groans and even some booing. And there was booing at halftime a little bit. I worry that, because there's no doubt he is a stubborn man. Mikel Arteta. Mikel Arteta is a stubborn manager that is married to his philosophy, and he vehemently believes in what he's done. And to be fair to him, what he has done has progressed Arsenal beyond what anyone thought he would. He has proven pretty much everybody wrong. Like, if those people that said that he wouldn't win a title are those people, for me, that are still most of them, the vast majority of them said that he would never even enter a title race. He has exceeded the expectations of everybody. Me, I'm sure you, I'm sure everybody. He has exceeded those expectations. And I feel as though that has given him, in his mindset, this kind of like self-belief that he is doing the right thing and that he's continuing to do the right thing. And I think he gets that belief also from the people behind him, that there's a real belief from the ownership, from the hierarchy, that he is the guy. I sense it sometimes in presses. I sensed it more so than ever in that press conference when Jordan Davis from The Sun asked him, can you explain that midfield three? And he said, we don't have time. Like, I've always wanted more accountability from Mikel in press conferences. And sometimes people put it on us and say, we don't ask him the questions. Well, we do. And questions were asked in those press conferences. I asked him if he was too conservative at Anfield after the game. And he said, he gave his answer. And I don't agree with necessarily what he said. But the environments of press conferences it's not like this. It's not a podcast. It's not like we can sit here and have a back and forth. There's different rights, there's broadcasting, there's people who get different numbers of questions, you get a certain number of questions, there's a time pressure, there's also an element of kind of like, if you get into a bit of a back and forth with him, like Jordan actually did, and I thought Jordan held his own very well in that back and forth in the post-match presser, there's an element to that also kind of in some ways, are you gonna in some ways in future press conferences, and I felt it after the Liverpool game when I asked that question about conservatism. I asked him a question after the Forest game about how he approached both the Liverpool match and the Forest match. And I gave him a setup. I pitched him a perfect ball to be like, we approach both games in the same way. And unfortunately, the result didn't go our way in Liverpool. Instead, he gave me kind of a satirical, blasé, you aren't in the meetings in the week answer. And
He's very prickly. He's very prickly, isn't he?
He is prickly. And I don't think he recognises when someone is trying to get kind of or trying to platform the opportunity to really kind of like explain to us what your mindset is. So when Jordan turns to him and says, "Can you explain the midfield 3 selection?" That's an opportunity for him to justify his selection. And so instead of going, "Oh, we don't have the time," you do. You have as much time as you want. You're the manager of Arsenal Football Club. That press conference doesn't have a time pressure in terms of we have to be off in this time. He can go on an answer as long as he wants, and managers do. Jose Mourinho once gave, I think, an 8-minute monologue about football heritage. Like, you can do that. You can, and I just
think, but do you think, Tom, that he knows in his mind, and look, you know, Mikel, you've seen him more than I do, but I get the feeling that when he knows when he's made a mistake, he will not admit to it, and that's not, and I get that, that's his style.
Yeah,
but he kind of closes the wall even more so when he knows he's wrong and he won't admit to it, and it's not necessarily, if he does it in private, if he says, "Look, I made the mistake, I got it wrong," fair enough. But to your point, when Jordan said it, there is a time to platform and say, "Look, I got this wrong. I should have gone for it a little bit more." I think Eze showed us in the second half they did it. But it's just, it's deeply, I get your frustration. I think you want him to almost, not vulnerability, but just admit, "Look, 45 minutes, I got it completely wrong," because he knew it. I think he knows it as well.
I kind of, I think it might be easier for some journalists who obviously aren't Arsenal fans as well. You know, it's a really strange line having to kind of cross the fan journalist divide at times. I've made mistakes. You know, I've said the word "we" in a press conference before, which is like the cardinal sin. You know, and you know, I look back on it now and laugh, and it was thankfully in kind of either a positive moment, and it was just kind of came through with the emotion of just the love that I have for Arsenal, and I want Arsenal to do well. I think that. I remember the PSG defeat, and he went out in the press conference afterwards and he said that there was an error in the first few minutes. We got the setup wrong. There was something right. We had to change it, and that cost us. So, but I think if he looks at a game, and to be honest, the vast majority of matches that Arsenal play, they are the more dominant team. They have the more possession. They have the more shots. They have the more chances, and they deserve to win the vast majority of matches. And he looks at football in that way. In that if you've done more than your opponent to win the game, you deserve to win that match. If you've had more possession, more shots, more whatever, he looks at it in that sense. And so we'll say, my selection, my choices, my picks gave us a performance that was the better of the two sides. And Arsenal were better than Manchester City yesterday. They weren't in the sense of like the chance, obviously, that they had to create. And you could argue if City won that game, you'd say, well, did they deserve to win it? Well, probably. But do you remember that the discussion after the Liverpool-Burnley game was, this is like really harsh on Burnley. No, it wasn't really. Like, Liverpool battered Burnley. And Liverpool absolutely should have won that game. It's crap for us, and the fact it was from a penalty that came from a stupid handball is annoying. But Liverpool were the vastly superior team in that
Liverpool
game.
should have scored in that game, and it was. I think it's fan frustration generally.
Yeah, it is. Like plucky Burnley nearly getting a point. Oh, it's really harsh on them. Yes, it is, because they've defended well, but they've defended well. City defended well, but they didn't deserve to win yesterday. Arsenal were the better team yesterday and deserved to get more than what they got. But there were reasons they didn't get more than what they got. And because there are reasons they didn't get more than what they got, that's what we have to focus in on. That's why we're frustrated Arteta didn't take accountability for those things that we look at and say, that's why we didn't win it.
Yeah, it's one of Mikel's little foibles that we see, that he is quite guarded. Look, he's very savvy in the media, in the media, and he's not going to be affable, etc. There's points at which he is, but when he knows when he's under the cosh, effectively, because there is a massive expectation, and we all know it. We're from the media, from the fans, as you said. This is the point where the club have said the team's supposed to explode. Heavy investments gone in, and we've all got expectations. But we've got chances to get back to it in the Premier League this Sunday, obviously coming, St James Park. Oh, what a run this is to try and get back to winning ways. I mean, Newcastle aren't really firing either. They had a 0-0 this weekend. It's not the Newcastle without Isak. It looks different, but it's certainly going to be a challenge, isn't it, Tom? This weekend, that as we said, is it, how are we going to approach that? Is he going to go for the conservative approach, or is he actually going to go for the throat with Newcastle? Because Newcastle are going to do what they're going to do. They're going to be physical in the midfield. That's their MO. They will not do anything else.
Yeah, away from home they're pretty poor, Newcastle. But at home, they are a different animal. They've got the crowd that is behind them. It gives them that belief. They're a very emotional side. Arsenal need to just be meticulous in this game. They need to be ruthless. They need to be clinical. They need to be, very much. They can't feed into the narrative of the game. They can't allow the pressure to kind of get to them.
We need a win, don't we? We need a win from this one, don't we?
Oh, yes, regardless, we can't. A draw isn't good enough for Arsenal anymore, And Liverpool, I think, play Palace this weekend. You have to expect Liverpool to win every game they play, and so until they start slipping, until you start, getting those opportunities to kind of turn the dial a little bit more or turn the needle back towards Arsenal, there is nothing other than a win that is good enough, and so. I think Arsenal have to go there, of course, to try and win it. They're going to dominate possession. They're not the team that they were, Newcastle. They are. I think Gordon's back for this game from his suspension, which is obviously a bit of a frustration. Yes. But still, Voltamado's just come in. He's not Isak. He's a very different type of player. And to be honest, his biggest threat is his area ability and his height and his threat. But that's our best strength defensively is how we deal with those moments. So I'm not
6'6", a 6'6" against William Saliba. I'm very interested to see how they go.
Yeah, and if he goes and scores a header, he makes us look silly. But it is our best asset defensively is how aerially strong we are. So. I feel good about the game. I'm feeling more confident as I have been, but that confidence again could be extinguished if Mikel Merino starts.
Bless Mikel Merino. Look,
he's poor on. As I say, it's not him. It's not about him.
It's
he's
the
a good
system.
player.
It's where he does it at international level.
Yeah,
I always find Mikel Merino is one of the most fascinating players I've seen in football recently because for Spain, he's nigh on amazing. But we've got his international part.
It's different, though. It's a different system. It's a different style,
I know.
Philosophy, different opponents. Like all the content. There's so many different facts, and that's why I didn't like that Arteta used it in that presser that he did when he said like. It was like, I heard the narrative after Liverpool, I played with 3 defensive midfielders, look at Merino scoring 4 goals. Yeah, for Spain. Like, it's different. It's so different. Like, you can't use that. You just can't. And the same way as, like he said about Bilbao, and he was like, I didn't see anyone ask me about the midfield in Bilbao.
It's Bilbao.
Because you won the game with the subs after the midfield changed. So we're not going to talk about the midfield. We're going to talk about the heroics of Martinelli and Trossard coming off the bench and getting a perfect start in the Champions League. You're not. Who's going to sit there after you've won 2-0 in Bilbao and be like, "What on earth did you pick that midfield again?" Like, no one's going to do that.
No one's going to really focus in on that one. Let's see what happens with Arsenal in the Premier League. We're going to talk briefly about the Port Vale game, but afterwards, I want to touch upon the weekend's fixtures. Just quickly, Tom, get your insights. Liverpool-Everton 2-1. This, again, Liverpool, I think, eke out a result but slightly different from the rest of where they've scored in injury time, etc. Because this one was Liverpool went ahead with 2 excellent goals, really hit Everton hard, but I thought Everton got back into this game very well. I thought Jack Grealish started to have a real impact, and I think it was just the case of time ran out, didn't they? Ironically, 3 minutes of injury time. When me being a fan, if he had been on the other shoe and Liverpool were looking for a goal, I think it would have been slightly longer. What did you make of this one?
Yeah, it's always uncomfortable, those conversations, because you sit here and you hope and you pray that every game is officiated equally. And I always lean towards that the officials are just not very good, rather than there's any kind of alleged ulterior motive, because I don't want to believe that. I just don't. But when when stuff like that happens, and you can see the frustration in Jack Grealish's post-match interview where he talks about the yellow card to Keenan Disby Hall and the lack of added minutes, and he then gets booked for questioning the referee's decision. It's like, what are we doing here? Like, and the numbers speak for themselves in the games that Liverpool aren't winning, the added time that's given, and the games that they are winning, the added time that's given. The numbers are there. And what I would say is that if I was a Liverpool fan, you've picked up, maximum points from your first 5 games, but you've been pretty darn fortunate. And from an Arsenal perspective, I think Arsenal have been better than Liverpool in these first 5 games. I think we've been a better side in these first 5 games. And we've had much tougher fixtures, and they've come up against 2 teams that have gone down to 10 men in the first 5 games as well, which has helped. They only beat Arsenal because of a startling free kick from Szoboszlai. Could have easily have lost that game. Arsenal have obviously now had to play City as well. And they've relied on very, 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 not just in the league, in the Champions League as well, very late goals to get the results in those fixtures. And we've just got to hope and pray that the law of averages is that this isn't sustainable and that they do get found out and that teams do punish them.
Last year does not help in that case because it was the same kind of thing and they absolutely
they
got the luck every single... I'd love to pray that eventually it'll get found out and then they go on a run of, misfortune, etc. It's just very disheartening. Next game, Brighton and Tottenham, 2-2. I enjoyed this game, actually. I really did enjoy this game. I thought, look, I don't like Spurs, but they got back into the, Brighton went ahead with 2 excellent goals. I thought Minte's goal was actually really nicely taken. And then, but Tottenham came back into this and it probably could have gone either way in the last couple of minutes. I was watching the game and I just thought it could have gone either way. What did you make of it, Tom?
Yeah, whenever I watch other teams, I'm just kind of looking at what Arsenal are going to face, coming up. Yeah. And I think you've got 2 teams there that obviously have a lot of attacking threat, and Arsenal are going to have to be really on it when we play either of those 2. But defensively, they are both, fallible and both have their weaknesses. So they create these kind of great, battles where you get a high-scoring draw, which isn't really good for either team. Both teams, really would be looking to win that game. Even Brighton, from their perspective, they want to, Spurs finished 17th last season, so you're looking at Brighton of saying, we've got to try and win this game. And it doesn't really help. They've just beaten Manchester City as well, so that confidence that they've got from those, they've got a good team, some good players, they've got a good manager who I don't particularly like, Herzog, because it's just his kind of demeanour, but he is a good coach. And I think both of these teams will be, the teams fighting for those European qualification spots based upon the quality that they have. And Brighton side of things, they're struggling to kind of hold on to leads. But from Spurs' point of view, they're struggling not to concede, but they are always, it seems, a threat. And that paid in the end.
Burnley, Nottingham Forest. I think this one's remembered for Alexander Zinchenko, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Terrible. Awful own goal.
It was a really awful own goal. If you haven't watched it, watch it, because I think comedy of errors is the word I'd put on this one. Not the way you want to ingrain yourself with your fans, is it? With an own goal. And he was actually okay. He wasn't bad.
No. But it's just a nightmare start. And obviously going to Burnley, this is a Forest team that have invested money. They've sacked their manager, who was a good manager, a very good manager in Nuno. He's got them into, obviously by default, technically Europa League, but finished 7th last season. A really good finish. Could have easily finished in the Champions League places if they had a little bit better of a finish in the league as well, with some of the fixtures that they didn't manage to win. I think Forest are in trouble. I just think Forest are a team that just lack ideas, and they've got a manager now who I have so little appreciation for. But so many people seem to rave.
Who plays a different style as
well. Very different style. And it's just not the style that team that they've built suits either. It suited a team that was more, it suited a manager that was more pragmatic, that would break up play and frustrate teams and also have utilised the quality of Gibbs White and then the finishing of Wood as well. But Ange Postecoglou was, in my opinion, and I could end up being proven wrong, a horrendous appointment. One of the worst appointments they could have made. Any Forest fan I've spoken to is not pleased about this decision. No. You've been pointed the manager that lost 22 Premier League games with a team with more resources than you. It's so silly. It's such a silly appointment for me.
We're going to find out if Marinakis' choices net out because, I don't think it was a great appointment. West Ham, Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace going very well. I think they've done, considering they lost their biggest player in Eze, did have done very well again. But West Ham, I think Graham Potter is under real pressure. I'd be surprised if he isn't sacked this week or probably the next game, because there's rumours of the return of Slaven Bilic, or I think they've talked to Nuno, haven't they, as well, Tom?
He would be the good appointment. If they could get Nuno, that would be a good appointment. But West Ham are a mess of a club. They'll be very lucky if they don't go down.
They haven't pushed on, have they? Do you remember? You know, after the Europa, after the Conference League win,
the money from Rice just hasn't been spent very well. Like
no, has any of them
Kudus
actually...
as well. Like Kudus has been sold. But you got to feel for Jared Bowen. Like that's a quality player that's been left in the mire, really. Maybe trapped by his relationship to Danny Dyer, and obviously then your father-in-law's like the biggest West Ham fan, most famous West Ham fan.
He can't leave, can he? He can't leave.
He's trapped there. So yeah,
could you imagine that talk? Dad, I've put a transfer request. You've done what? And
what?
You know, you've done what?
No son of mine.
proper East End gang. Oh, look,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to have a serious talk with you, boy.
Yeah, West Ham are my absolute, alongside Wolves, tip for relegation, which we'll come on to, and then Palace. Oliver Glasner is a good manager. He's a good manager. I still think he underachieved in the league a little bit last season, but obviously the FA Cup victory lifted that up beyond anything in compare. But without Eza, they've still got a good team. They recruited well. Yeremy Pino is a very good signing to replace, Eza, and Mateta just continues to impress. The system works with Munoz and Mitchell playing in those wing-back areas. They kept Gehi, who's a very good professional after not getting his move. He's carried on very well. And Adam Wharton's an excellent midfielder as well. And Will Hughes, Will Hughes is a very underrated, I think, midfielder, and they get the best out of him.
Yeah, I think Palace will do very well this season. Wolves 1, Leeds 3. Oh dear, Wolves.
Wolves are in trouble.
They're really in trouble, aren't they? I think I put the 3 promotion candidates to go down, but I'm looking at Wolves and I don't think there's an easy way back unless I think Vitor Pereira's due. I think he's another one on the chopping block very quickly because they have to do something because they've got some decent players. They've got some decent players there. It just doesn't seem to be working.
If Sean Dyche isn't at Wolves by the end of the season, I will eat my hat. Like it's surely Sean Dyche is the manager to come in there and to say
he's not sexy, is it? He's not sexy enough for the Premier League anymore.
He's not Portuguese either. So yeah, I guess I see what you mean. But
Nuno could come back though, couldn't he? That's a possibility, isn't it? As well.
True. Will Nuno come back? I don't know. I don't know what the relationship's like with Jorge Mendes or any of those guys. I don't know what it's like. But they are in trouble. I think the writing's been on the wall for them for a long time. They have recruited
last
well
year last year even. But they recruit very well. They get these very good players.
Well, I don't think they recruit as well as people think. There's obviously a lot of the Portuguese, or at least Portuguese-speaking element to that setup. And when you marry yourself to kind of that idea that isn't necessarily ingrained in the principles of your club, like say with Athletic Club and the Basque kind of policy there, you do kind of lean yourself into being something of a stepping stone. And I think that there's been a lot of stepping stone players at Wolves, and Wolves used to be a side that you think, Wolves were looking to be what Brighton have kind of become, and they just haven't been able to recruit well enough while making enough from the players that they've sold them. They might have kept players on for a little bit too long, and I think they got
Strand Larsen.
Was it £55 million bid they turned down?
They should have taken that one.
You can't be turning down money for Strand Larsen like that,
because he's okay. He's okay, and I get there was
£55 million. If you've got a good enough recruitment team, you take that money, you spend £25 million on a player as good, younger, that's got a high potential and ceiling, and they didn't do that.
I think. Man United 2, Chelsea 1. Wow. Not only was it chucking it down in this game, but it was chaos through the whole thing. And obviously this was all started off by Robert Sanchez really not helping his case for the Chelsea goalkeeper jersey by taking out Brian Mbeumo and getting sent off. I mean, this was a crazy game, wasn't it, Tom? It was enjoyable as a neutral.
Yeah, as a neutral, it's great to watch. They are probably the 2 most frenetic, chaotic teams in a way, alongside Spurs. I guess Forest now involved in that as well. But just the naivety, like Man United, I think they got goalkeeper problems, and they get the gift, the most ironic gift ever. Their opposition keeper getting sent off in a few minutes. I love the video where you can just see Maresca's reaction to
the look on his face, like, oh.
It's just, he knows. He's just like, what are you doing? Like, why? Like, all plans go out the window there. And then Palmer comes off injured, and I'm not really a fan of Maresca. I didn't like the way he talked about Sterling and Dizazi in his press conferences. I didn't like the comparison to his father's job. Like, I get that analogy, but it's so inappropriate, like in the context of kind of those discussions around players and mental health, especially. So I think that Chelsea have enough quality that they should be fine, and I think if they don't go down to 10 men, they probably win this game pretty comfortably again. So I think it's situational, but Man United, just so lucky that they managed to come up against a
even
team
then, Tom. But
chaos.
even then, Tom, when Casemiro got sent off, you looked at that Chelsea team and you thought, if you had kept at least some of those changes that he went very early with his changes.
When Neto came off, it was just like, what are you doing? Yeah.
Because United were there to be gotten at. They were so. United have not turned the corner. I don't think. I think if their fans are naive enough to think they've turned the corner with this result, then you're dreaming. Because I saw the same problems with that three. The three at the back, the two in midfield. Fernandes is not a central midfielder. But it's always entertaining. The Sesko watch keeps going on. That he got taken off. I thought he did okay actually. He applied the flick.
I think that was a terrible decision for him to move there. Like, utterly. He should have stayed at Leipzig for another season and then replaced Harry Kane at Bayern Munich.
He needs development. He's not going to get it at United, is he?
It was a terrible decision. His agents have really hang his head in shame, I think, at that choice, because it's just...
Well, we already know what the agents like, because we obviously got the taste of it during.
We're only going to move for a special project and a special manager. Well,
it's a special project. It's special,
all right, but not for the reasons that you want it to be special.
Fulham, Brentford. Fulham 3-1. Fulham are a very good team. I think they'll do well again this season, because I think again they haven't recruited amazingly well, but the core of what they've got is very good, I think. And I think they are going to be a problem for teams this season. Even Arsenal, if you look at, they've been a problem for us before, and I think they will be again.
Yeah, I think Alex Iwobi's on course to have a brilliant season for them. He's been very impressive. And, King in the middle, Josh King's a really exciting young player as well that they've got and brought through. They've got a solid defence, good goalkeeper that we know of. They like Arsenal B these days, the amount of former Arsenal players they have. It is funny. Obviously, Reece Nelson nearly went back there as well. And it was not in the squad, I don't think, Reece Nelson, for this game.
Brentford, he was he?
He's still injured. Yeah, frustration for him. Brentford, another team that you have to say a contention for relegation alongside Wolves and Forest as well. Oh, amazing, I'm saying Forest, but I do genuinely think Forest could be in a bit of trouble. I just think that with Fulham, they got a good manager, Marco Silva. But I think this is always Marco Silva's level. I always feel like, he's a manager that will get talked about in the Man United job or the Chelsea job, but he should never go to those clubs.
I think it's too much. I think it's too big.
It's too big a job. He can do well at these clubs. Everton, he did a decent job. Watford, I think he did a decent job. And Fulham, just these are the clubs for you. Stay at these clubs and do well.
Going on to Sunday's game, Bournemouth 0, Newcastle 0. We talked about this. It wasn't really.
No.
I still continue to be impressed by Iraola. I still think that if you're a club who are looking for a new manager, you should be looking heavily at Iraola, because he's such a good manager. Considering what's happened, the defense has been stripped, and he's still producing results. It's crazy how good he is, and I am very scared about who will get him next.
Yeah, you got to worry that somebody like Chelsea, could potentially
United. If United actually get him, I think that might be the one team that actually.
One team that could ruin him, that's they're a poison chalice, which is good. But also you got to look maybe at Manchester City as well. And if Pep Guardiola, moves on one day, is Iraola a good fit? I'd say so. I think his style of football is very good. I think his defensive solidity is very good. I think he identifies players very well and builds a squad very nicely. So. Yeah, look, I think he gets the best from his players, and that's what you want from a good manager, is somebody who gets the absolute maximum, and he's doing that with that. And let's be honest, that team is punching above its weight, and he always does punch above his weight as a manager with Bournemouth. He always has done that, even with the defence they had last season, which was very good, but it was very good as a result of, Housen's already having some struggles with Real Madrid. So, I think you have to look at the coach in those situations to getting the best out of him.
Yeah, absolutely. Sunderland versus Villa, 1-1. Villa score. They haven't won, really, have they? Again, where do you see Villa? Villa are, I don't know what Emery's Emerying, isn't he? Unai's Unaiing, isn't he?
Yeah. It was Unai Emery for me is. I don't know how many times that people need to see him to recognise why he's never the right choice for your project, unless you're Sevilla. Like there's no club really where he will, in my opinion, succeed in what they, because what he will do for you, as they saw at Villa, is that he will improve you initially, and then you will burn out with him, because there's no end point of success with Unai Emery for me. He's just not that manager. And a lot of Arteta's biggest critics kind of put Emery on a pedestal in the sense that he wasn't given a real chance and he wasn't given the opportunity he should have done. It's rubbish. Like, you just end up undermining yourself and embarrassing yourself with these types of views, because he just continues to prove with PSG and now with Villa, just time and time again, and with Arsenal, he's just not good enough. He's a decent coach who gets an immediate response from his players when he first injects his ideas, but then he doesn't evolve. He doesn't change. He doesn't grow. And as a result, you fatigue and you burn out. And
I think he's also getting frustrated, isn't he? Because they haven't really been able to add anyone of note apart from Cassandre, isn't it? I can get frustrating.
But they've still got so many good players in that squad, and they're just not using them.
Yeah. And then finally, obviously, the 1-1 result at Arsenal-Man City. So that covers the results. Tom, just before we end the podcast, I want to talk about the Port Vale game, because it is, as we talked about, a cold Wednesday in Stoke, which you're going to. So I wish you luck, because wrap up warm, because it's starting to get a bit parky.
Chilly. Yes, it is. Yeah. It's one of those difficult grounds to go to from the station, because it's like a 50-minute walk. Transport's not exactly easy. I think the hotel I've got, because it's a night game, so I'm staying over as well, it's like you got this triangle of Stoke where you get to the station, there's a 50-minute walk to the ground, and then a 50-minute walk to the hotel, and then a 50-minute walk from the hotel back to the station. So this is weird triangle kind of in.
You're going to get your steps in. You'll get your steps in at least.
Yeah, the steps will be got in for sure. But it's a weird one. And Arteta's press conference being late on the Tuesday night, I don't think helps either.
So do you go up on the Tuesday night? Do you have to go up on the Tuesday night?
No, I'll be going up on Wednesday, but coming back on the Thursday. I think it's a chance to see some hopefully Nkapie's injury that obviously meant he wasn't in the squad this weekend is only minor, so he can be involved, because it'd be good to see him. Norgard, I think, will get his first start. I think Martinelli needs to start this game. You could argue that Gyökeres should start this game, potentially as well, but maybe they might want to manage his load. Marino otherwise will probably be starting at centre forwards. If not, you've got.
You don't think Trossard would go up front with this?
He could do, but it's impossible with this squad that we've got so much depth now. It's difficult to know. Mosquera will play, Luis Skelly will play, Waneri you think would play. Could Dauman start? If Madueke obviously has had an issue and they don't want to bed, I think there's a chance Saka could play, because he likes sometimes to use those lower games to kind of bed players back when they're coming back from injury. So
cold night in Stoke for Saka. I dread that one, honestly. Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for rotation, but a lot of people are saying, look, we need to win. The Carabao Cup is an opportunity because it gets you into that winning mentality. And I've been very effusive. The Carabao Cup is not my priority, but I totally get that we need to create that winning mentality. You win your first trophy and it sets you up to continue winning, because we have this problem at the moment. We haven't got over the hump, as we call it that. What do you think, Tom? Is this one that we should be, with our depth, with the talent in that depth, because we've had depth before, but we haven't had this level of quality in the second string? We should really be going far in the Carabao Cup, shouldn't we, really?
Yeah, look, it's a competition that we have underachieved in, not just under Arteta, but for many, many, many years. George Graham was the last manager, I think, to win it for Arsenal. So we need to make sure that we're doing better. And I agree with you. I think it can be a springboard. It can be a competition, if you win it in April, that can propel you towards a really strong end to the season. And with a game like Port Vale, Arsenal have been handed an opportunity to rotate and still go strong. You look at the teams that Man City play in these competitions against lower league opposition, it's always strong. It's always, they always look to win these games at a canter, because, if you are able to kind of, score 2, 3, 4 in these games, it also allows you rest. It allows you opportunity to kind of, stave off fatigue, if you will, in certain games. But even though you've got a midweek fixture, and with a trip to Newcastle, of course, on the Sunday, we want to be resting as much as possible. I don't know who Newcastle are facing in the tournament. Some quick check on who Newcastle are playing. They're playing against
Bradford.
Yeah, so they got a similar game
at home, but they're at Sir James's. Port Vale are 19th in League One. You'd think that this, on paper, should be I'm not saying canter, but it should be. We should be getting through, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
Even
yeah, of course.
No, I have PTSD because I went to Bradford. And we should have won the.
Yeah, I remember.
I was there for the Bradford
different
game.
Arsenal back then.
I know it was, but I have PTSD with these kind of. I have PTSD with these kind of things, and I was there. And then my in-laws, who live right next to the stadium, had the biggest smile on their faces afterwards, taking the piss out of me. So I have
been to those Nottingham Forest games as well in the FA Cup where we just got knocked out.
Yeah, it's
never great.
Third rounds of cups, it's not exactly been great for us in the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, well, the League Cup is an interesting one because we've reached 2 semi-finals in like the last I think 4 seasons. But yeah,
we just fell away last season, didn't we? That Newcastle just completely fell away, didn't we?
Yeah, we didn't perform very well. Obviously, injuries hit the squad, but yeah, we weren't very competitive in either of those games, and that needs to change.
We're expecting a good win, aren't we? I mean, it's going to be tough. Look, Port Vale will do nothing but not make it tough, but we should be winning this game with good rotation to prepare for the weekend. Newcastle can rotate, but not as much. I don't think. I think the scope is much less, isn't it?
I still expect them to be, and they'll want they're the holders of the tournament as well. They'll want to go through. They'll want to make a good showing of themselves. So I still expect them to still play. Several of their key players, but they will rotate, same as us.
Yeah. So we look towards Mikel's press conference, which, as you said yesterday, is going to be a late one tomorrow. And then obviously try to enjoy the cold night in Stoke. I do wish you luck, Tom, because that's out. You're doing the good work for us football fans to make sure we're reporting. But yeah, hopefully we get a win, and hopefully as well we start to get the results we need, because it is obviously while it's still early in the season, we do want to make sure we're getting in a good position in the league. But Tom, thank you so much for joining on this one. I really do appreciate it. Obviously, if you don't know Tom Canton on social media, where have you been? He is ever present at Tom Canton Media. If you haven't followed, at GoonerTalk TV. Is it at GoonerTalk TV? Because there was some debate, wasn't there?
It's on Twitter. It's like the handle's GoonerTalk TV, but the channel is just the GoonerTalk. So yeah.
Yeah, because there's another one, isn't there? That's taken. There's someone else.
There's an account on Twitter that's just called the GoonerTalk. There's been
had to
big
clarify.
For ages.
I was like, yeah, why is
as far as it's quite funny. There's a funny story behind that account because it's changed hands as far as I'm aware, that account. So I used to work at a website previously, and the editor that was one of the social media editors owned that account and then sold it. So I know that whoever's on that account now is not the same person who started it.
No, not. The style has changed very dramatically.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you haven't caught Tom's show, 8 o'clock in the morning, again, I don't know how you do it sometimes, my friend. I'm waiting for you, honestly. I know you're going to keep the show going. I'm waiting for you to have kids, because when you're on the school run, I want to see the school run edition.
Yeah, I know. It is a worry, because it is in our future. It's something that we're talking about and thinking about for the future, and yeah, that is
baby edition. First of all, baby edition.
Yeah, it's fair to say I'll be the one doing the early mornings get up, and then she can take over at 8 o'clock.
I want to see that. I'm on baby duty this morning, so just sit tight.
A lot of early nights and early get ups, I think.
Oh yeah, but you're doing, again, I know that you're, obviously your fans are very appreciative of you doing, early starts, especially for our fans across the globe, because they're amazing. I don't, again, it's amazing what our global fans do. But if you haven't caught it, catch the GoonerTalk TV on YouTube every morning, 8 o'clock, most mornings. There are some mornings where he, obviously, the work commitments, etc., do take it. It might not make it on Thursday, I'll be honest. Cold night in Stoke.
Yeah, I don't know what time my train back from Stoke is, to be fair, so I don't know, but maybe.
What's the internet situation at the hotel?
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? I do have a little Wi-Fi dongle thing, but it's never that's never guaranteed to work either. So I don't know.
In Stoke, I don't know. The internet situation there.
Tricky one. Very tricky.
But Tom, thank you very much for joining us. I hope we can get you back at some point. Obviously, hopefully, when we have more positivity in the results, maybe. But for now, thank you so much. And for everyone who's listening, thank you again for listening. Do catch us on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, all those channels. Please keep listening. Please keep subscribing. And we'll catch you on the next one of Red Lines, Half Spaces. Bye for now.